So hello everybody, good morning and welcome back to the EduphoreIAS, the Hindu analysis series. And today is the date is 6th of July, and we'll be starting with the first or the front page of the today's Hindu. So quickly let us have a quick glance at the first page, what's important from this page. So firstly, left side you see we have ISRO moves closer to third moon mission, Chandrayaan 3 we are talking about. So page number 12 we will be tracking this news today. Fine. Apart from that, you see these are not that relevant for us. Ajit moves EC says he was elected NCP chief on June. So what is important for us is the election commission's this action with respect to such kind of faction or taking into account the defection laws into account, and then granting that which faction of the NCP, let us say, having majority plus which of the two factions is the real NCP. Fine. So whatever development will be related to this topic, how the election commission is going to give its judgment, final judgment with respect to that which one of the two factions is the real NCP party. Like a similar thing happened with the this Shiv Sena. Fine. So even Shiv Sena today has two factions. Fine. So on the similar ground, we might see the same kind of things, similar kind of things over time. So we'll be discussing that when EC would be giving some judgment, fine, or taking some actions. So that is polity and that is required for us, but not the politics as such, that what's going on, kisne faction banai, who is heading which faction, how many people are with them. This is irrelevant for us, fine. But what is important for us is anti-defection law. What is important for us is how the EC is going to, pronounce its judgment with respect to, the party, that which faction actually holds majority or is in the real sense, the real NCP, that is Nationalist Communist and this Maoist party. Fine. So we'll be discussing this thing when how the way we'll be discussing this thing when EC is coming up with such kind of right? Okay. So fine. Further, you see on the right side, not much important, nothing important as such. Fine. And that's it for from this page. But let us move to the okay. So another important news from this first page is PhD no longer mandatory for teaching jobs, says UGC, right? So UGC has relaxed the criteria for appointing teachers in colleges and universities by reversing its decision to make a PhD degree mandatory for hiring assistant professors, right? This was made mandatory in the year 2018, but now this has been amended, right? So PhD qualification for appointment as an assistant professor will continue to be optional. The NET, that is National Eligibility Test, NET, set for states, and the state level eligibility test, SLET, shall be the minimum criteria for direct recruitment to the post of assistant professor in all higher education institutions. Right? This was said, or what said by the Honorable Chairman of UGC, Mr. Jagdish Kumar. Right? Jagdish Kumar. Okay. So it further said that the set and select won't be the criteria for selecting assistant professor in Central University. Means for Central University, the minimum eligibility criteria would be NET, GRF of course, fine, not the set and select. So this much is important from this page. Then we have the local news related to Delhi, fine. After that we have lots of politics, fine. We will be skipping. Okay, finally let us quickly go to the editorial page, the most important page. Okay. So let us start with this. So left hand side you have this diminishing returns. India benefited as a member of the SCO, but the future is not bright. Of course, future seems not that bright with respect to the SEO. Why so? So we have already discussed a lot about this SEO, and we'll be again discussing SEO in detail on the explainer page, fine, on the today's, of course, today itself, where we'll be tracking down what is SEO, what are the different members. Though we have the fair idea of which are the members. Yesterday we discussed there are 9 members, and Iran is the newest member, fine. So this much is important. Okay. Apart from this, this is the main article, which is very important for the day. And here, most of all, what is important is the comparison of the two constitutions, that is Indian Constitution and the American Constitution, with respect to affirmative action. When I talk about affirmative action here means the positive discrimination, you can say. For example, reservation. So granting reservation to such kind of individual or community who have been socially or educationally backward, let us say, or economically backward, especially socially and educationally backward, we mentioned in our constitution. So if some group, let us say SC, ST, even OBC to a certain extent, so if we consider them as socially and educationally backward, then we should grant them, or we can grant them, positive. We can do positive distribution with them, that is by providing reservation, fine. Because historically they have been socially and educationally backward, so now we can provide an opportunity to educate themselves and to lift up their backwardness, fine, improve their backwardness. So of course we call it affirmative action, but these affirmative actions have different connotations in or explanation in, of course, American Constitution and Indian Constitution. Fine. So that's why we'll be discussing this, because this becomes important, and at times UPSC even asks in the mains 3 years back, UPSC asked a question related to the concept of secularism with respect to French Constitution or France and India. Compare the concept of secularism in France and India, between India and France. So of course, this is how at times you get the question. That's why this article becomes very important. Okay. So how the two constitutions, Indian and American Constitution, talks about or governs the affirmative action. I hope now you got the point that what exactly is affirmative action. Affirmative action is positive discrimination, where a certain group has been historically disadvantaged. So now government is providing through its policy measures, let us say reservation or certain affirmative action, that is positive actions government is taking up in order to overcome their backwardness. Fine? Okay. So in a groundbreaking decision on June 29, 2023, in a students for fair admissions versus Harvard University, the United States Supreme Court, SCOTUS, deemed the race-conscious admissions policy at Harvard and the University of North Carolina as unconstitutional and violative of the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment of American Constitution. Fine. So what is the background? That on June 29th, what happened that the United States Supreme Court, in a case called Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard University, what Supreme Court said? Supreme Court said that this race-conscious admission policies at Harvard and the University of North Carolina somewhere is unconstitutional, and it violates the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment actually talks about the equal protection, like we have Article 14, so we have there equal protection of law as well, right? Right to equality. So as Chief Justice John Roberts stated, eliminating racial discrimination means eliminating all of it. Fine? So eliminating racial discrimination doesn't mean just eliminating it in pieces or parts, but eliminating the whole of it in everything, be it education, be it in social sphere. Fine. So this ruling profoundly impacts affirmative action programs where race has historically been factored to foster diversity in college admissions, such as in Texas and Michigan. Many believe that the Harvard judgment now makes affirmative action nearly impossible in the US. Fine. So now the authors are writing, or the writers are talking about that such kind of judgment by the Honorable Supreme Court of America makes it nearly impossible for the US government to make or take affirmative actions for those sets of people who have been historically, you can say, the victims of racial discrimination, or that is like the blacks, the African origin people residing in this US, especially the blacks especially, fine. So SCOTUS underpinned its verdict with 4 reasons. So why Supreme Court gave this judgment or this verdict? Because of 4 reasons. First, it emphasized that the equal protection clause is color blind, fine, and the term equal protection means identical treatment. So when you talk about equal treatment, it means color blind. Equal protection is color blindness, means it doesn't distinguish between the 2 sets of people based on the color of their skin, fine, either they are black or white, fine. So it means identical treatment irrespective of the race. Thus, race-based affirmative action contravenes this promise. Second, it affirmed that any such contravention could only be justified if the state has a compelling goal and affirmative action is absolutely necessary to attain it. So if state proves that it has certain compelling goal and affirmative action is needed for absolutely necessary in fact for attaining this kind of goal, then it can go ahead. The state must articulate this goal clearly to enable judicial scrutiny, that is judicial review basically. The court found Harvard and the UNC, that is University of North Carolina, objectives such as training future leaders as commendable but vague. Third reason, the court reiterated an earlier ruling that affirmative action policy should have a sunset clause. Sunset clause means after a certain time period of you are going to take back this policy, right? Let us say 15 years, 20 years. So there will be a sunset clause. However, both Harvard and UNC lack this. Lastly, the court held that affirmative action should not rely on racial stereotypes or disadvantage anyone based on the race. 2 aspects it identified as problematic in this case. So the last reason the Supreme Court gave in order to strike down this this policy of affirmative action based on the natural discrimination. So it said that affirmative action should not rely on racial stereotypes, fine, or disadvantage anyone based on race. Stereotype means thinking good about yourself, fine, and bad about others. Of course, stereotyping is regarding good social. On the basis, especially their racial stereotyping means based on the color of their skin. So 2 aspects identified as problematic in this case, with Indian courts often drawing upon US judgments and given shared histories of discrimination based on caste and race, India and the US. It is pertinent to examine the implications of this decision for India. Can this lead to reservations being either curtailed or considerably diluted in India? Okay. So at times it has been raised, such kind of issues being raised that reservation from India, reservation in India should end, fine? Because constitutionally even it was permitted that it would be for 10 years. Then it kept on, the governments kept on, revising it or amending it, and for the successive, let us say decade or the next 10 years. So this is how in our country the reservation has become all the more pervasive, right, and persistent as well, not being directed after 10 years. So 2 different constitutions of India and US. The India and US constitutions are poles apart, of course different, because majority of the things in our constitution finds, or our system of parliamentary democracy is of course based on more or less like UK in this system, on how they treat affirmative action. So both Indian and US constitution differs on how each treats the affirmative action. Fine. I hope you have understood affirmative action means positive discrimination, and one form of positive discrimination is providing reservation to the disadvantaged or the backward this class. The US Constitution is silent on it, prohibiting only the denial of equal protection. So US Constitution doesn't talk much about your positive affirmative affirmative action, while Indian Constitution. But US Constitution does talks only about the denial of equal protection, that everybody should get equal protection. No one should be denied the same. So leading to varied interpretation of this amorphous phrase. Amorphous is something vague, not clearly defined, depending on the sitting justices. Today's majority, it means exactly what it meant in the 19th century or in the past. That is color blindness. Color blindness means no discrimination on the basis of color. And to the dissent, those who are against it, means consciously treating historically oppressed races differently. The Indian Constitution is more clear thanks to our framers. It expressly allows affirmative action in favor of backward classes in matters of education under Article 15 and in matters of jobs under Article 16. Article 16 expressly permits reservations in jobs, something that is unique to the Indian Constitution. Fine. So Article 16, of course, permits reservations in jobs, something that is unique to the Indian Constitution. Remember, in fact, this reservation provision was part of the original Constitution as enacted on January 26, 1950. So this is not something which has been added on to amendments later on, but this was in fact part of the original Constitution. Unlike affirmative action in education, which was introduced in the next year through the first amendment, that is 1951, India's courts routinely debate the granular question: what percentage of seats or posts can the state reserve? Yes, this is very, very important. How should the beneficiary classes be identified? Unlike, you might be aware of a concept called creamy layer. Fine. So creamy layer to a certain extent addresses this: how should the beneficiary classes be identified? Unlike the US, however, India's courts do not debate as to whether affirmative action is fundamentally permissible, for the Constitution conclusively answers that question. Right? So unlike US courts, our courts doesn't discuss or debate as to whether affirmative action is fundamentally permissible. Fine. So the Constitution conclusively answers that question. That yes, of course, Constitution itself addresses. That's why here you see this line. Article 16 expressly permits reservation in jobs, something that is unique to our Constitution. So of course, our Constitution conclusively answers this question of that whether affirmative action is fundamentally permissible or not. So it is permissible. Okay, next is formal versus substantive equality. So what is formal equality and what is substantive equality? Another distinction is the notion of equality that lays the foundation for affirmative action in both the countries. The US seeks to eliminate all distinction based on race universally. The reason being, equality cannot mean different things for different individuals, of course. This applies even for affirmative action that may be justified to undo the historic discrimination faced by African American or Hispanics or other groups. Thus, measures which treat one race as distinct from the another in any manner, including a preference in education, are viewed strictly and against equality. Of course, equality means, it cannot mean different things for different people or different groups. Fine, equality means all the groups are equal. So when you talk about equality, fine. So in terms of equality, it simply means that somewhere, one race cannot be treated apart or distinct from the another. Fine. Rather, both of them should be treated equally. So this is called narrow view. Narrow view of equality is called a formal equality. Fine. So what is formal equality? Formal equality is a narrow view of equality. Fine. And prevents US courts from allowing broad-based race-conscious measures. So this narrow concept or the formal concept of equality basically prohibits the government or this US courts from allowing broad-based race-conscious measures. Fine. That is affirmative actions or reservations for the, let us say, blacks, African-American people. On India, on the other hand, does not treat all distinctions of race or caste alike. Certain classes such as scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and backward classes who have faced discrimination in the past are not considered on level field with others. Of course, to To help them to achieve equal opportunities, it is imperative that they have access to reservation. As Justice K.K. Matthew explained in 1976, the notion of equality of opportunity has meaning only when a limited good, or in the present context a limited number of posts, should be allocated on grounds which do not a priori exclude any section of citizens of those that desire it. Fine. So see what Justice Matthew explained in the year 1976 itself. He said that what he said about equality. So he said that equality of opportunity with respect to employment, of course, has meaning only when a limited good or number of posts for the same has been created, fine, or allocated on grounds which do not a priori exclude any section of citizens of those that desire it, which do not prima facie excludes any section of society which primarily desires it. Fine. If some, let us say we are talking about the backward classes, so of course backward classes should not be, this should not be excluded from such kind of actions. Fine. So that's what he's saying. Exclude, do not a priori exclude any section of citizens of those that desire it. जिनको जरूरत है at least उनको exclude नहीं करना उससे. Fine. Thus reservation is not antithetical to equality, but a tool that furthers equality. This is very, very important phrase. You might find questions in your GS paper 2, of course, discussing on quality, so and governance. So more or less, this is how the UPSC frames questions. From here, like the statement would be like reservation is not antithetical to equality, but it is a tool that furthers. What it furthers? Equality. Fine. Critically examine this statement. This is how we get the question. This is called a substantive notion of equality and facilitates Indian courts to pass pro-reservation judgments in sync with the constitutional mandate. So now we understood the narrow concept of equality is called the formal concept, which prohibits US courts from coming up with a pro-reservation measures or affirmative actions. On the other hand, substantive equality is a broader version where where reservations are not antithetical to equality, rather the reservation furthers equality. Fine, and therefore this is called substantive notion of equality, which facilitates in fact Indian courts to pass pro-reservation judgments, and therefore it is called as substantive equality, which is in sync with the constitutional mandates. In this context, a decision such as the Harvard University case is unimaginable for Indian courts. Fine, of course, all those won't be taking such decisions because things are different for us. So, test for constitutionality. Further, the test to determine whether affirmative action or reservation is constitutional also varies substantially. How? The US has strict scrutiny of all measures that create distinction based on race. This means a measure is constitutionally permissible only if it furthers a compelling state interest and is narrowly tailored to achieve such interest. The only permissible state interest in the US is the need for a diverse student body. Fine. Once this is established, it must be proved that the measures closely correlates to diversity. This is the highest standard that makes it extremely difficult for universities to devise admission programs that are favorable to the minority race. Fine. So this is how it becomes difficult for higher institutions to come up with the programs that are favorable to the minority race in particular. So any broad measures are viewed with great caution so that non-minority candidates are not disadvantaged at the cost of minority. Of course, the majority should not suffer because of the minority reservations at all. In stark contrast, in Indian courts have a very different standards to meet under Article 15 and 16 of the Constitution. Education and public employment are already enshrined in the Constitution as legitimate goals for reservation. So of course 15 and 16 talks about affirmative actions. Thus the standard adopted by the courts focuses on whether the class seeking reservation is socially and educationally backward and inadequately represented. So these are the conditions under our constitution, that whether the class seeking for reservation is socially and educationally backward and inadequately represented or not. In employment, this requires proof of quantifiable data from the state. These two criteria. So these two criteria, first criteria, whether the class seeking reservation itself is socially and educationally backward or not, and secondly, in employment, this requires proof of quantifiable data from the state. And the state needs to determine whether particular group seeking for a reservation belongs to the disadvantaged group or not, or how many of the, let us say, individuals of that particular group being represented in the sources. Even broad reservations measures are constitutional, and the interest of the non-minority are instead taken care of by capping reservation at 50%. Given India's constitutional mandate that champions substantive equality and adopts a more reasonable test, Indian courts are unlikely to align with the United States Supreme Court arbitrarily. Courts have repeatedly sounded caution that foreign decisions should not be relied on without a proper appreciation of the context in which they were rendered. So, of course, we blindly cannot follow this US Supreme Court judgment with respect to the affirmative action in our country, but the context becomes very important. It needs to be taken care of. So, however, the emphasis on the sunset clause akin to the Indian Supreme Court suggestions in the economically weaker section reservation case would potentially resonate. Parliament's receptiveness to this idea remains to be seen. So, like sunset clause we are talking about in the case of this US court judgment, akin to, similar to what Indian Supreme Court suggested for Indian economic, for economically weaker section reservation (EWS), could potentially resonate, and Parliament receptiveness to this idea remains to be seen. Whether Parliament, how Parliament reacts to this idea is still yet to be seen. Right? So this article is very important as far as the GS2 is concerned. One question you can expect from this article. You might be asked firstly to distinguish between the formal equality and substantive equality, and then how the US constitution differs from Indian constitution, or the Indian constitution differs from US constitution with respect to affirmative action. Fine. So this this article in itself is a fodder for you, a ready-made answer. Fine. So it's a very important article. Do read and revise the same. Next is choose a new palette for India's creative economy. Okay. So choosing a new palette for India's creative economy. Digital platforms and technology. Here we are talking about arts and artists. Digital platforms and technology have enabled Indian artists and artisans to reach wider audiences. Indeed, however, they face challenges also that are related to the economic sustainability, market access, and digital divide, crime in the art world, and preservation. So these are the challenges. A collaborative model promoting cultural economy can help encourage India's soft power by creating an ecosystem of innovative technology based startups, providing guidance, technical support, infra, access to investors, and networking opportunities. So a collaborative model can promote cultural economy, which is very important for this sustainability especially. Fine. So the creative economy is one of the youngest and fastest growing sectors with unique challenges that often go unnoticed by public and private investors. There is now growing recognition of the economic importance of the art sector as it helps in the creation of jobs, economic growth, tourism, exports, and overall societal development. So there is now growing, arts sector, arts and artisans we're talking about. Recognizing the economic importance of this sector of culture, the UNESCO World Conference on Cultural Policies and Sustainable Development, that is Mondia Cult 2022, was held to address contemporary issues in multicultural societies. So what are the issues in multicultural society? The goal was to share a vision for the future future of cultural policies and to reaffirm the international community's commitment to leveraging culture's transformative power for sustainable development. So how the soft power or the cultural economy or the creative economy would be leveraged, right, for cultural transformation alongside sustainable development. So this is a very good economy. Again, another important insights related to your cultural economy or the creative economy. You can say, because we talk more or less about arts and artists. So challenges and status of artists in India. Online platforms, social media and digital content creation enable artists, writers and filmmakers, musicians and other creatives to engage with audiences and monetize their talents. Right? So of course social media is the biggest tool today in order to engage with the audience and monetize their talents as well. When Indian artists and artisans play a vital role in preserving traditional art forms and creating contemporary art forms, they face challenges that are related to economic sustainability as well, market access and the preservation of traditional forms in a rapidly changing society. Government support, cultural institutions and initiative provides financial assistance and initiatives provide financial assistance, training programs and opportunities for artists to exhibit their work. So of course government policies can positively contribute towards this. However, more efforts are needed to promote contemporary artists as brands and ensure equal representation and financial assistance. So author is focusing and stressing upon more efforts needed to promote the contemporary artists as brands, right? And ensure that equal representation and financial assistance may be granted to them, right? There are challenges in the selection of artists. So what are the challenges in the selection of artists for financial assistance? In organizing cultural events, lack of transparency in the selection process creates inequality in representation. First challenge, lack of transparency. Second, there is no systematic or rotational mechanism in place to provide this assistance. Second is, there is no systematic or rotational mechanism to provide this kind of assistance, and the selection process is often random or based on subjective criteria. So talented artists, particularly those based outside the city, are unable to gain from sponsored platforms. Additionally, unlike in other countries, there are no serious efforts by private or public institutions to promote contemporary artists as brands. So again, this is another challenge. Artists and artisans with creative ideas require market research, business facilitation, and a platform. So of course, today's artists, in the world of virtual reality and all, requires what? A market research, business facilitation, alongside that a platform. Fine. And ONDC, like Open Network for Digital Commerce, could be one of the, but we have to romance. Crime in the art world includes art theft, copyright infringement, forgery, fraud, and illicit trafficking. Addressing these crimes requires increased security measures, international cooperation, public awareness, and advanced technology for authentication and tracking. So all these would be needed in order to prohibit or address such kind of crimes in the art world. Tackling crime in the art world will help foster a healthy creative economy. Artworks depicting or exploring criminal activities as well as criminal activities within the art industry pose significant challenges. Right? So such kind of artwork depicting or crime related to art, of course, pose significant challenge for the industry itself. Okay, so there is no institutional infrastructure, expertise and technology to verify the original artwork. The gap is leading to injustice towards genuine artists. So of course, if you have no institutional setup or let us say infrastructure, expertise and technology to verify the original artwork, then of course the gap is leading to injustice towards genuine artists. So of course, you won't be able to differentiate between who is genuine and who is, what? Of course not genuine. These offenses affect cultural heritage, and causes financial harm and erode public trust. So these offenses affects cultural heritage, alongside that causes financial harm and erode public trust as well, because exploitation of Indian artists, unaccounted money preserved through artwork, and the dissemination of disinformation about cultural history. Dissemination of disinformation about cultural history through various media only compounds such kind of problems or the issues. So the solutions include increased security measures, international cooperation, public awareness, and advanced technology for authentication. So what are the solutions? So these are the solutions. Regular audits of acquired artwork can enhance trust and preserve collections integrity. Fine. So what are the further suggestions? Regular audits of acquired artwork can enhance trust and also preserve collections integrity. So regular audit, another solution. An institutional record of incoming and outgoing artworks with a verified identification mark is required. Yes, another solution. Now a workable solution. Having a collaborative model promoting the cultural economy is an effective solution to address the challenges faced by the creative economy and promote the economic contribution of culture. Economic contribution of culture. That's what I'm saying. Very good article talking about the cultural economy. Right? To promote economic growth, a solution can be to encourage. So what could be further solution? A workable solution to encourage India's soft power by having capacity building center. This should help create an ecosystem of innovative technology based startups in the arts and craft sector, providing guidance, technical support, infrastructure, access to investors, and networking opportunities as well. So the needs, what are the needs for the artist? So the needs for the artist must be bridged through training, fine, professional development, then market access, and participation in large communities and networks. So this is how the needs of artists can be met or ensured. A facilitation center would help foster knowledge sharing, economic empowerment, and sustainable livelihood solutions for the artists and the artisans. So what has been, what would be the way forward? Further suggestion could be establishment of a facilitation center, which would first help in fostering the knowledge related to the art and the artist itself, and even make their livelihood a sustainable one. Right? Data analytics should be used to foster a creative ecosystem that contribute to sustainable world. The government, along with the private players, can empower artists, help bridge industry gaps, and contribute to the overall development of the creative economy by providing support, resources, opportunities for innovation and entrepreneurship. So this is how the government can help alongside the private industry as well. Additionally, existing institutions should address the various needs of the artists, such as training, professional development, material support, access to markets, public validation, and participation in large committees and networks. So all these, the matters of the existing institutions should be addressed with respect to the various needs of the artist. Further, a facilitation mechanism should operate by. So how this facilitation mechanism will operate? So they should operate by focusing on fostering knowledge sharing, networking, and economic empowerment for individual artists and creative entrepreneurs by offering business training, incubating innovative projects and incubation, and connecting them with the global marketing platforms, tools, and practices. So the integration or globalization of this cultural economy, especially the artistic economy, you can say, could be one of the way forward. The center should also be a platform, central government, to provide sustainable livelihood solution for the artists and artisans through participatory models, leveraging the latest ICT, information communication technology tools to enhance their participation in the business ecosystem. So now it is the time, it is also time for new data that shed light on emerging trends at global level as well as putting forward policy. Fine. So these all things could be taken into account. Policy recommendations to foster a creative ecosystem that contribute to a sustainable world. And the final solution is the economic and cultural significance of art, culture, and the creative economy in India by addressing challenges and proposing solutions should support the growth and development of artists and artisans. So in the center of all such policy measures should be the two things, artists and the artisans. Fine? Then only this will be better implemented. So very good again piece of article along with the problems you have prescriptions, solutions as well, way forward as well. Fine? Moving to the next pages. And I said important from the today's this explainer pages, Iran's induction in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, which we are discussing from the last 2 days. So Iran has finally inducted in the SCO as its 9th member. Fine. Okay, so why will the entry of the SCO's newest member aggravate its image of being anti-West? That is, we are talking about Iran. So the story so far, as Iran joins the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as its 9th member, I mentioned yesterday the 9 member countries, leaders of the SCO at a virtual summit chaired by Indian Prime Minister Modi on July 4 stressed that the formation of a more representative and multipolar world order is in the global interest. So the global or the SCO itself is stressing upon, you see, the formation of more representative and multipolar world, where there is a rule of not just a single country or the 2 countries, but more than 2 countries. Fine. Global governance. So what is the SCO? In fact, the SCO was built on the Shanghai 5. Shanghai 5 इसलिए इसको हम यूरेशियन ब्लॉक भी बोलते थे पहले. So it was built on the Shanghai 5 grouping of Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. कौन दो missing है? Turkmenistan, which is still not the member of this permanent member of this group. Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan is there, Kyrgyzstan is there, Tajikistan is there. Which one is missing? Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan दो group है. But earlier it was Shanghai 5, Russia, China outside 3 which had come together in the post-Soviet era in 1996. You know, in this integration of Soviet bloc 1981. So post-Soviet era, when Russia emerged the leader of the new nations after disintegration of post-Soviet era, so it was formulated, it was established as Shanghai 5 in the year 1996. What was the objective? To work on regional security, reduction of border troops and terrorism. In 2001, the Shanghai 5 inducted Uzbekistan into the group and named it the SCO. Right? The organization has 2 permanent bodies, the SCO Secretariat based in Beijing and the Executive Committee of the Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure in Tashkent. Right? This is the place where I think former Prime Minister Shri Shastri was marking this Tashkent files. You might have seen this documentary. So what are the main goals of the SCO? Shanghai Cooperation Organization we are talking about. The SCO describes its main goals as strengthening mutual trust and neighborliness among member states, promoting their effective cooperation in politics, trade, economy, research and tech, and culture, making joint efforts to maintain and ensure peace, security, stability in the region, and moving towards the establishment of a democratic, fair, and rational new international political and economic order. But they might be asked, you can ask to China that how democratic it is. Because SCO bloc is talking about democratic, fair, and rational new international political and economic order. Rational political order, international order. But anyone can ask, you can see that to what extent China is rational and democratic. Okay, the latter part of the statement, which calls to build a new international political and economic order, did not sit well with the US and Europe, and has led to the SCO being dubbed as anti-NATO. You see, yesterday that I referred to the Quad. So Quad security dialogue of the 4 members, let's say Australia, India, Japan, and US, being referred to as NATO, Asian NATO by China, and SCO is referred to as anti-NATO by US. But remember, India is a part of the both, that is Quad as well as the SCO. So you see how the international relations actually unfolds. Nothing is permanent except the self-interest. For proposing military cooperation. So So this concern was further heightened when heavy sanctions were placed on Russia for its actions in Crimea, and China came to its aid, signing a 400 billion gas pipeline agreement. So this is how China helped Russia during the sanction time. Since then, through the personal bond between Russian President Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping, the SCO has become a platform for Eurasian, which is Russia plus Europe plus Asia, cooperation in region rich with energy resources. So especially the Central Asian republics, the four countries that are part of, including Iran and all, these are of course energy rich nation, these regions, energy resources. So has SCO dealt with bilateral issues? India and Pakistan joined SCO as observers in 2005 and were admitted as full members in 2017. Remember, in the same 2017 year, India joined Quad as well. Fine. So keep in mind this much. Since that is full membership, India received full membership, got full membership of both the bloc SCO and Quad in the year 2017 itself. Since 2014, India and Pakistan have cut all ties, talks, and trade with each other. However, both countries have consistently attended all meetings of the SCO's three councils: head of state, head of government, and council of foreign ministers. So you see, in SCO we have three councils. First is the head of the state, heads of the state. So heads of the state, like in our country, heads of the state is the president, heads of a government. Heads of government is, or the head of the government in our country is the prime minister. Fine. Then we have council of foreign ministers as well. So there are three councils of SCO. So despite the fact that India accuses Pakistan of perpetrating cross-border terrorism at every other forum, at the SCO, Indian and Pakistani armed forces take part in military and anti-terrorism exercises together as part of the SCO regional anti-terrorist structure. So here, India and Pakistani military together take part in the military exercises as a part of SCO regional RATS. We call it RATS, SCO RATS, that is the regional anti-terrorist structure. Fine. Where they participate in military exercise in order to counter the terrorist, this terrorism of terrorists. Not only Pakistan, the SCO has also facilitated talks between India and China on the line of actual control border issues. So that's why this block is quite important for India, because this gives an opportunity to talk with the countries with which we are not having the cordial relations, or bilateral relations. So why is Iran's induction significant? Well, the SCO's original goals focused more on stability and security. The recent induction or the recent declarations have put the focus squarely on connectivity. So earlier the focus was stability and security, now the focus is on the connectivity in the region. Connectivity. For India, there has built its connectivity strategy through Iran's Chabahar port, where it operates a terminal, and through the international north-south transport corridor that goes through Iran and Central Asia to Russia. The entrance of Iran in the SCO is an important milestone. So induction of Iran is somewhere good for us. To begin with, Iran's presence ensures support for Delhi's move to circumvent land-based trade through Pakistan, which has blocked transit trade for India, especially for with respect to Afghanistan. Uzbekistan President Mir Ziaoui said that Central Asian states that are double landlocked will seek to build a multi-modal trade route via Afghanistan to ports in both Pakistan and Iran. Again, if this gets translated into or implemented, what Uzbekistan President said, then of course it will allow India to conduct trade with the region while staying out of the China's Belt and Road Initiative. In addition, the induction of Iran, a historically close partner of India that has also suffered from terrorism emanating from Pakistan and Afghanistan, will bolster India's push for an end to terrorist requirements. Where the government may find some unease in more vocal support for Iran is in the fact that the SCO is increasingly seen as an anti-West forum, and Iran, like Russia, is under severe sanctions of US. In addition, the US has accused Iran of supplying weapons to Russia, and the expected induction of the Belarus next year will only strengthen this image of the SCO, because Iran, China, Belarus are the, you can say, the best friends at this moment for Russia. Even as India is shifting ties in the Quad, making the Indian balancing act more difficult now. Fine? I have already told you about the Asian NATO and anti-NATO versus anti-NATO. So that's why the balancing act now being a member of the Quad itself, and for India it becomes difficult to have this balancing act going forward. Fine. So again, a very good piece of article related to SEO. Everything has been explained in this. Fine. Now let us move quickly to the miscellaneous news. Okay. So cabinet gives nod to data protection bill, which hopefully, as earlier I told you or in our discussion that the data protection bill is going to be introduced in the upcoming monsoon session. So legislation will be introduced in Parliament in the monsoon session. It specifies norms on management of personal data of Indian residents, activists have raised concerns on amendment to the RTI Act 2005 that will prohibit government departments from sharing personal information. Okay, so there has been an amendment to this as well, and this is going to, so when this will be, so let us have a quick look at this. So of course, Indian cabinet has approved this or cleared the digital personal data protection bill. Remember the name is digital. Earlier it was personal data protection bill (PDP). Now it's a digital as well. So taking care of the digital domain as well. Fine. This paves the way for the bill to be introduced in Parliament in the monsoon session, which is scheduled to begin on July 20. Along with the data protection bill, the Indian government may also table the Indian telecommunication bill, a draft of which has been already circulated. The Telecom Bill will overhaul the Telegraph Act, which is the legal framework for telecom firms and the internet service providers. Okay, so the data protection legislation specifies norms on management of personal data of Indian residents and requires explicit consent from people whose data is collected and used. This is a good thing. The officials said that over 20,000 comments were received on the draft bill. Okay, don't need to do that. So quickly, okay. Okay, so the DPP, that is DPDP, right? The social media is DP. This is how you remember DPDP, digital personal data protection bill. Digital personal data protection bill, or DPDP. Bill also outlines practices for entities that collect personal data, how that data should be stored and processed to ensure there is no breach, as well as the rights of persons whose data is being used. Okay, so EU law journal, that is the framework, basic framework, or you can say the basic, the first one to come up with, because EU as a bloc or as a country very much proactive with respect to the privacy or protecting the data of their citizens. So bill draws from an EU law, the General Data Protection Regulation, and benchmarks 23 instances in which taking consent for recording data is not possible. These are the special circumstances like golden hour during an accident or natural disasters and so on. So during this, there are 23 lists have been benchmarked where under these 23 instances, taking consent for recording data is not possible. For example, during accidents, so of course you won't be going for asking the consent for the data, rather you want to focus on saving the person. Fine? Okay. So you see, the bill has a clause for offering voluntary undertaking in case an entity wants to admit that a breach has occurred and pay penalty as mitigation measures to avoid court litigation. Penalties can even reach up to 250 crore for each instance of breach, ranging up to 250 crores, and an upward revision of 500 crores can be made. So as per the draft, the Data Protection Board of India could fine firms which do not protect users' data with fines for individual offences ranging from 10,000 to 500 crores, which may apply in the case of data breaches. So first, even EU has imposed under its General Data Protection Bill heavy amount of penalties, so that then only the company will be rather sensitive towards the data of the citizens. That is a good step, it's a good thing. Okay. So in an ecosystem where artificial intelligence is rapidly evolving and applications such as ChatGPT is scraping data from social media platforms to test its models, the official added that the upcoming bill was tech agnostic and would cater to the world we are in today. So it will be tech agnostic, means taking care of the world we are living today, and is taking care of the evolving technology as well. Fine. Now the issue is RTI Act has been amended and the opposition is leveling. So what is the amendment under this? So RTI Act, you know, Right to Information Act, which was, of course, it's 2005, enacted in 2005. In the DPDP bill that to prohibit government departments from sharing personal information, arguing government departments may refuse to share information that will hold public office holders accountable. Any personal data will not be shared with a third party. However, a person whose data has been breached can ask for their own information through RTI. So this has been granted. The bill comes after multiple versions floated by the Indian government as process that was started way back in 2017 with the case Swamy versus Union of India judgment, which granted right to privacy as a fundamental right, part of Article 21, where privacy was declared as key to the fundamental right to life and personal liberty under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So again, very good, insights and information, what has been amended, and further, when the bill will be, becomes act and it will be in public domain, of course, we'll be discussing this very in detail, the pros and cons and everything. Fine. Okay, moving quickly to the next topic. Okay. Further, politics. So we can skip these pages. Let's quickly go to the world page, world news, and first is Chandrayaan 3 integrated with launch vehicle LVM-3. Fine. So launch window for Chandrayaan 3 is between July 12 to 19. Means during this time period it will be launched, and the orbital raising will take place soon after launch. The lander and orbiter will orbit the moon before touching down on the lunar surface. And remember, in few days back we discussed the lander and orbiter will remain the same. That is Vikram, rover and lander basically. That will be same. That will be that will be used in Chandrayaan 2 mission as well. Fine. Okay. LVM-3 is nothing but a launch vehicle Mark 3. Fine, means 3-stage launch vehicle. Okay. So again, when you do refining launch, you will be driving me this detail as well. Okay. Going to the next page, which is world news. Russia, Ukraine warn of attack on nuclear plant. Russia, Ukraine warn of attack on nuclear plant. So, Russia has warned that Ukraine might attack on nuclear plant, which is under the capture, under control of Russia. It's Russia controlled Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, a flashpoint of concern in the conflict in Ukraine. Fine? Okay. 12 Palestinians and 1 soldier killed as Israel ends raid in West Bank. Okay, going on for the last 3-4 days. Okay. Philippines, see, blames China boats for harassment. Fine. Philippines External Affairs Minister has been in India, so where we extended our help to Philippines with respect to its position. Fine. And now a global rupee may raise volatility because we are talking about the internationalization of rupee. So of course we can raise volatility as well, because when we will be more integrated, so anything happening in the world market or international level would be having impact on Indian economy as well. So of course internationalization has this downside of volatility as well. So rupee internationalization could come in conflict with domestic monetary policy. Caution of features of an interdepartmental group of the RBI. However, the group asserts that the benefit of internationalization far outweigh the various concerns. A volatile proposition. Internationalizing the rupee may result in increased exchange rate volatility. In the initial stages, say this IDG, that is interdepartmental group of the RBI. A global rupee may accentuate external shocks as funds can freely flow in and out of India. Internationalization can offer benefits such as limited exchange rate risk, lower cost of capital. So these are the pros, these are the cons. However, the RBI said the IDG's observations do not reflect its official position on this issue. So this is not the official position of RBI. So both pros and cons, again important if you want to carry or if you want to writing something about the internationalization of rupee, especially let us say economics optional or GS3, so you can have this. You can put this interdepartmental group of the RBI this recommendations as well for viewers. Fine, moving ahead. PMI signal services growth is to 3 months low in June. Okay, so PMI signal services growth is to 3 months low. Earlier we have seen the PMI industry growth low compared to the May month and compared to June. Now it's about services. So of course not a good sign for us, a good sign for Indian economy. Fine. But the quantum of fall matters too. Okay, finally we have landed on the sports page. Okay. So that's it from the today's, that is 6th of July, the Hindu analysis. I have tried to cover everything from the editorials, the main important articles, to the miscellaneous facts, to the prelims as well. So that's it from my side. If you have any query, you can put this in the comment section. Until then, take care, keep revising, and stay tuned for tomorrow's discussion. Thank you.